Hello, everybody. I am Mrs. Poppet, and this is my place. It's so nice to see you again today for story time. I have one I think you may have heard before. This one is called Cinderella, but it's a little different than the one I think you may have heard, so I hope you enjoy this one too. Cinderella. Our mother was very ill, and she knew she would die soon, leaving behind her second husband, who was rich but not kind, and her beautiful daughter. She called her daughter to her bedside and said, "My dear daughter, be good, and God will protect you. I will look down on you from heaven and be near you always." After she died, the girl went to her mother's grave every day and cried, for she missed her very much. Winter came, and then in the spring, the girl's stepfather married a new wife. The new wife had two daughters who had pretty faces but mean, jealous hearts. These new stepsisters took the girl's lovely clothes away from her and gave her an old dress and wooden shoes that she had to wear. "Just look at her now! Ha ha!" they laughed. They made her work from morning till night. She got up before the sun, carried water, lit fires, cooked and washed. The girl didn't even have a bed. She had to sleep by the fire in the cinders. This meant she always looked dirty and dusty, so they called her Cinderella. Once, when their stepfather was going away to a fair, the two stepsisters asked him to buy them pearls and jewels. Cinderella said, "Please bring me the first branch that knocks on your head on your way home." So he brought the gemstones for the two sisters and a hazel branch for Cinderella. Cinderella thanked him. She planted the hazel branch beside her mother's grave and watered it with her tears. It grew and became a beautiful tree. Cinderella would sit beneath it to cry and pray, and the birds would come and sit in the tree to listen. One day the king of the land announced a great festival to honor his son, the prince. When the two stepsisters heard the news, they were very excited. "Come, Cinderella," they demanded. "Comb our hair for us, tie our sashes, and fasten our buckles, for we are going to the king's palace." Cinderella did everything her stepsisters asked, and then she said, "May I go to the dance too?" "You, Cinderella, go to the dance, covered in dust and dirt? You have no clothes and no shoes." But Cinderella still wished to go. Her stepmother tipped a great pot of lentils into the ashes and said, "If you pick them all out before we leave in 2 hours' time, you can come with us." Cinderella opened the window and called, "Pigeons, turtle doves, all the birds of the sky, peck lentils for the pot and leave the ashes aside." 2 pigeons flew in, then turtle doves, and then all the birds from near and far came whirring and crowding into the kitchen to peck among the ashes. They gathered all the good lentils back into the pot in less than an hour's time. Cinderella showed the pot to her stepmother, full of delight because she thought this meant she could go to the dance. But the cruel stepmother said, "It makes no difference. You cannot come, for you have no clothes and cannot dance. We would be ashamed of you." She turned her back and hurried away with the 2 mean, jealous stepdaughters. Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and called out, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, drop silver and gold down on me." A white bird in the tree brought down a beautiful silver ball gown and slippers embroidered with silver silk. Cinderella quickly put them on, and she went to the dance. Everybody at the king's palace stopped to look at the beautiful stranger. Cinderella's stepsisters and stepmother didn't recognize her because she looked so much like a princess in her silver dress. The prince was captivated. He danced only with Cinderella and never let go of her hand. She danced until it was late, and then when she wanted to go home, the prince said, "I will accompany you." for he wished to see where the beautiful girl was from. She escaped him, however, and hid in the pigeon house. The prince waited until her stepfather came and told him an unknown girl had leapt into the pigeon's house. The stepfather brought an axe to it and chopped the pigeon house to pieces. But nobody was inside, for Cinderella had jumped quickly down from the back of the pigeon house and had run to the little hazel tree. There she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on her mother's grave, and the bird had come down and taken them away again. Then she sat down in the kitchen among the ashes. The next day the king's festival for his son began afresh. Cinderella went again to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, drop silver and gold down on me." Then the bird threw down an even more gorgeous dress of gold and sparkling golden slippers. And when Cinderella appeared in this dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince had been waiting for her and danced with no one else. When it got late, she wished to leave, and the prince followed her, but she ran away from him and into the garden behind the house. There stood a magnificent tall pear tree. She clambered it so nimbly between the branches that the prince did not know where she had gone. He waited until her stepfather came and told him an unknown girl had climbed the pear tree. The man took an axe and cut the tree down, but no one was in it. Cinderella had jumped down the other side of the pear tree and had given the beautiful dress to the bird on the little hazel tree and sat by the fire once more in the kitchen. On the third day, Cinderella went once more to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, drop silver and gold down on me." And now the bird threw down to her a gold and silver dress, which was more splendid and magnificent than any she had had yet, and the golden slippers embroidered with silver. And when she went to the dance, no one could speak, for they were so astonished. The prince again danced only with her. When Cinderella wished to leave, the prince was anxious to go with her, but she escaped from him so quickly that he could not follow. However, he had asked for the whole staircase to be smeared with tar, and it was sticky, so when she ran down, her left slipper stuck. The prince picked it up. It was small and dainty, and it glittered in the light of the moon. The next morning the prince declared, "I will marry the girl whose foot fits this slipper." He went from house to house through the land. He came to Cinderella's house, and the eldest stepsister tried on the slipper. Her foot was far too big, and she couldn't fit her toes into the shoe. The prince passed the slipper to the second stepsister, who took it away to her room. There she got her toes safely into it, but her heel was too large. Her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut a bit off your heel. When you are a queen, you won't be traveling on foot." The second stepsister cut off a bit of her heel and forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the prince. He helped her onto his horse and took her away to be his bride. But as they had to pass the tree beside Cinderella's mother's grave, there sat a pigeon who cooed, "Turn and look, look and turn, blood drips from the shoe. The slipper was too small for her, your true bride waits for you." The prince turned and saw the blood trickling from the stepsister's foot. Shocked, he turned his horse around. "Who else lives here?" he demanded at the house. There's only the kitchen maid, Cinderella," said the stepmother. "You cannot want to see her." But the prince insisted that even the kitchen maid should try on the slipper. Cinderella washed her hands and face and went to the prince. She took her foot out of its heavy wooden shoe and slid it into the little slipper. It fit perfectly. When she stood up, the prince looked into her eyes and recognized the beautiful girl from the dance. He shouted, "This is my true bride!" Stepmother and two stepsisters turned pale with astonishment and rage. The prince helped Cinderella onto his horse, and they rode away. As they passed the hazel tree, two pigeons cooed, and they said, "She fits the shoe, your bride is true. Goodbye to you, goodbye to you." Cinderella and her prince were married that day, and they lived in his magnificent palace where they were happily ever after. The stepsisters attended the wedding, hoping to share in Cinderella's good fortune, but as they walked into the church, the pigeons pecked out their eyes, and so for their wickedness and lies they were punished with blindness for the rest of their days. I know that story was a little bit different, but it still ends with them living happily ever after, and the stepsisters, being so mean, kind of got what they deserved. It's not a good idea to be mean, because when you're mean, then mean things happen to you. So keep that in mind and enjoy the rest of your day. You are wonderful, and I cannot wait to see you again tomorrow. Bye.